What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey and welcome back to another miniature rescue. This week I take a look at one of my favorite armies that Games Workshop almost wiped off the face of the earth. Skaven are some of the best and most iconic minis that Games Workshop has ever made. They've also been around for a pretty long time, which means that there are models ranging from the early days of Warhammer Fantasy all the way up to the latest edition of Age of Sigmar. When I got back into the hobby a few years ago, when AOS came out, I immediately started buying eBay lots of older Ratmen minis. Weirdly, while I never really got into fantasy when I was younger, the Skaven were always something that I knew existed from reading books, and I've always kind of had a soft spot for them. So when the old world was killed off, there was an opportunity to find models going for a lot cheaper than normal, something that we actually see around edition changes pretty often actually. The best deal I probably ever gotten on eBay was a lot of Skaven Giselles. I actually made a video about those probably 5 years ago now, and there have been some serious updates since then, within the last few weeks, actually. Most of you probably already know, but if you don't, Games Workshop recently announced that they were killing off a bunch of armies, not supporting them, and removing them from the game. Understandably, that upset quite a lot of people. The weird thing is, though, that in a majority of those cases, the range is actually being updated or moved to another game system, so not entirely gone, but, you know, kind of a weird workaround at the same time. Either way, it sucks, and there are models that we have that are painted and ready to go that won't be able to see time on the table anymore. Although that's still not entirely true, most likely. I have painted a ton of older models, and they're no longer supported, and they either proxy for something else or are an older version of a newer model. And as long as the base size is the same or larger, there isn't an issue with using them on the table, if they still technically exist. And I think even in a GW event, that is still allowed because they're still Games Workshop models. I know that doesn't apply to everything that we lost, but I still have some hope that these models will be able to be used for something, if only because I have evidence that it is possible within my own personal collection and armies. For the Skaven, we lost some of the coolest units, and some that seemed pretty important. The Clan Rats were a huge one, the Storm Vermin, Engineers, Plague Priests, Censer Bearers, but the one that got me the most were the Giselles. Even shortly after that announcement, I thought that sweet deal that I had scored on those minis was basically for nothing. They generally go for about $25 or more for just one, and you need 3 in a squad to play in a game. I'd gotten 9 for $25. I figured that the resale value of my minis had just gone completely in the trash, but then GW shared the new Liberator model and of course the new Giselle team. I am all for this, and I love how they're changing the Stormcast to not be as derpy as they have been in the past, and how the updated Giselle team looks a lot like the old metal models, but with much better detail and made in plastic. What it means is that the price of the older models will likely go down on the used market as the new ones take over, and that gives us the opportunity to pick up quite a few great models for much less than MSRP. I am very much looking forward to the Stormcast minis going down so I can get more conversions in and still use them on the table even though they're gone. The Giselles being quite similar means that the older models probably won't go down in price too much. The point is that the future of the deleted models is still up in the air. We don't actually know what will happen with any of them, and only time will tell. I'm gonna remain positive and hope for the best. What that also means is that these Giselles need to be taken care of, and I need to build an army before the new version comes out. Specifically, I need to actually get these models on the table with the rest of the army because rats are back and I want to see what they can do. So ever since that original video, I pretty much just put everything in a drawer and I didn't really think about it too much. Honestly, there was a lot of other stuff going on at the time. AOS was pretty new, so you know, it wasn't really a huge priority. In the interim, they've been beaten up, they've been moved around from drawer to drawer, I never put them in anything to keep them protected with that original paint job that I started. So what I'm going to have to do is strip the paint down to metal again, make sure it's clean, because they're just banged up. They're missing pieces of paint all over them, and I don't want to prime over what's there and start over like that. I'd rather just get the metal clean and prime over fresh metal. Since these are metal models, I'm going to use this jar, and I'm going to use 100% acetone. Yeah, so I'm going to pour this acetone into the jar, put the minis in there, and we're going to see what happens. As you can see, the acetone is already starting to remove the paint extremely effectively, and because it's all metal, all of this is just going to be torn away and the metal's going to be fresh underneath. There's also some primer underneath that's been scratched up a bit, and that should make it a little bit easier to get through. So even with a swish of the jar, you can just see how much paint actually comes off of these models pretty instantly. Getting out a toothbrush, I clean each model off the rest of the way, and we're basically left with brand new models. Looking closer now that they're clean, I can see that I missed quite a few mold lines and even some metal flashing from the casting process. Using an X-Acto blade, I can scrape away any of the excess, and the models are looking the best they're probably going to. Next up, they need to be reassembled and put onto new bases. Some PVA and beach sand will take care of the initial steps to get some nice texture on the bases, and once everything is dry, I'll get everything primed up and ready for new paint. On somewhat of a side note, I've also been printing out rats for one-page rules. The idea is to have an alternative army to play with that rule set, as well as proxy units for the new edition when it comes out. Keeping a toe in each game system, so there's some flexibility and a way to continue playing fun games with my painted models. Building and painting models is obviously a lot of work, so having options just in case GW decides to screw people over more seems like a good way to go. Either way, my models will see the table, but more importantly, I have a great excuse to paint more minis, play more games with my friends. Something to think about now that they've started to erase more models. Painting rats has always been pretty enjoyable. The texture does a lot of work for you, so having stark color changes looks less weird than on other models. I start with a darker brown for the fur and work in some pink where the fur thins out and you can see some skin. Next up, I'm going to hit all the cloth with a bit of dark green, and after a couple of coats, introduce some yellow green to liven it up a bit. To brighten up the fur and to make those volumes stand out more, I'll mix in some orange brown into that base coat and lay down that color over what would normally be muscle structure on pretty much every other model. The fur hides all that, but we can get that detail back by laying down that color on each piece. It breaks up the darker brown and helps keep the detail. Honestly, this is where I'm most excited about the new plastic models. A fresh look at some really cool models with cleaner lines and details to paint should make for a better experience than these older metal models. Not that they're terrible, I actually really like them, but plastic is smooth. The wood gets yet another coat of brown paint, only this time a little lighter that has some yellow in it. That way it looks at least a little different to the fur and the leather on the models. Plus, with highlighting, that's going to change even more, so it's not the worst thing to be a little similar. I'll start the metallics with some bronze. Skaven and bronze have always gone well together, so it's going to be here. The gun barrel straps and details on the shield will be great in this color, and the rest of the metallic bits will be silver to break it up. Now that the base coats are down, I'll do a quick wash with some slightly watered down Agrax Earthshade. This will get us close to the end pretty quickly, and from here it's just a little bit more paint to bring back some of the base coating and highlights. Any area on the model that has a little bit of staining from the wash just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. We'll be gone over with those base coat colors again. For extra detail, I like to bring in some verdigris into the bronze, especially on the shield where it can run down the wood and into the cracks. A little bit of water added to a light teal, and you can make a kind of wash that just slides right into the recesses. It's also a good idea to wipe any excess away from raised surfaces so that the color is only in the recesses. That's just kind of how it works. The last thing I want to do is take care of the base. A nice variety of grass tufts to make it feel like they're at least trying to be a little bit sneaky and hide behind something. And then fill the rest of the space with some short, static grass. I did paint all of the sand and rocks brown, so if any of those things still poke through, then seeing that through the grass is still going to make sense. All in all, I've got a massive start going for this army, and I'm excited to use them for whatever game I can actually use them in. Of course, we know that there are more units coming back, and we can only hope that a majority of them will be back from the ones that they got rid of. The fact that some of these models that are being taken away from this game are pretty new is really weird. It's a weird thing for a company to do, and it kind of hurts the trust that we've built with them, not that there's a ton already. The fact of the matter is there are other games out there, like One Page Rules, and plenty of other ones that I don't even know about necessarily. And the thing is that we have all these models and we put all this time in. So having a little bit to do with multiple game systems using the same models or similar models, you can still have fun with them. You can still play games and you can still do fun things. So it's just a good idea to have some backup sometime. Don't put all your eggs in one basket because you never know what they're going to do. It's a big corporate company, right? Still, it's pretty bad that we even have to think about this at all, but here we are. If it's Age of Sigmar, One Page Rules, or some other game, I'm going to put models on the table and try and have as much fun as possible. And I suggest that you do the exact same thing. Thank you for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you liked something about this video, please consider hitting that like button, sharing this video with your hobby friends, and subscribing for more miniature rescues. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video. And of course, here is my super sweet Skaven army. Thanks again.